move to our final session before we go for a lunch break, which is about, is blockchain 4.0 really here already? Please put your hands together for our moderator, Christopher Greene, who's the founder of Alternative Media Television and BitcoinRich.com. He is also a media personality featured on CNN, Fox News, and RT. Take it away, Christopher.
Hey everybody, welcome to BlockShow Asia Singapore. It is absolutely fantastic to be here. I want to thank the people of Singapore for having Michael and I today. This is my first time here, and I got to tell you, I am so impressed with this place. This is the cleanest place I've ever been. I rode the metro yesterday. It was absolutely amazing. The financial center is really incredible. So let's get into it. Blockchain 4.0. What does that even mean? Let's do brief introductions. Of course, I'm Christopher Greene. I'm with AMTV, Alternative Media Television. I've been doing social media for 11 years now. When people used to laugh about it, I started vlogging out of my bedroom, and I have since made probably 3,000 plus videos. We've started to travel the world, and more importantly, blockchain has changed my entire life. I am a big believer in free enterprise. I am an unapologetic capitalist, and I also believe in a free press. Now, what's really strange about that is we are struggling with that in America, of all places. There is a ton of censorship. There are just a few digital silos that basically control the free flow of information. Now, blockchain promises to change all of that, not just from a free press perspective, but also from the perspective of monetization through different blockchain technologies. I also teach an educational platform called Bitcoin Rich, where I teach the fundamentals all the way to advanced topics to students all around the world. I'm sitting with here another incredible host today. I'm a subscriber to his YouTube channel. This is Michael Gu, and he is from Hong Kong. My first time meeting him in person. It's always weird meeting somebody that you see like vlogging, and then you see their face in person.
That's you, right?
Yeah, and you never know how tall you're going to be, and all these little idiosyncrasies.
Or like wide.
or wide. And so today, let's get into what is blockchain 4.0. Is that a stupid acronym? Is that are we already there yet? I mean, some people might think in the audience that we are only at 1.0 still. I mean, we're looking at a lot of challenges with Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash. I want to ask you a little bit about today. What is your opinion on Bitcoin and blockchain, more importantly, 4.0?
Okay, so this is a really great topic. So a lot of people, they chose this topic, and it's exciting for a lot of people because the 4.0 is a stunning number, right? So just before we even started this talk, I actually went on Twitter and asked my Twitter followers, guys, what do you think of blockchain 4.0? Do you think it's a stupid jargon? Do you think it's a phrase used for new projects to raise funds? Do you think it's exciting? Do you think there's new technology there? Are you excited for blockchain 4.0? So we have like both ends of the spectrum. Is it exciting or is it a scam? And actually the results of that Twitter post was actually very diverse. So we have around 46% saying, yeah, this is a jargon word. And also we have around 30-something% saying, you know what, I'm really excited for blockchain 4.0, and the rest is undecided. So in this talk, I really wanted to cover, what is the origin of this word? Where did it come from? And what are the technologies associated with it? So it kind of clarifies your view of this area. So just to begin, I want to say there's this conception. So I did a little bit of research before we started. What do people think of blockchain 4.0? And the history of this world really came from the early days of this year. It kind of feels like a long time ago. But earlier on this year, there's a lot of people kind of wanting to promote new projects and building, also not just promoting, but building new blockchains and building and seeing that there were problems with blockchain. Right? So even when Bitcoin first came out, there was this problem, like how are you going to scale? Right? You can process 5 to 6 transactions per second. Yuppie, you're never going to reach the level of that Visa card. You're not going to be a currency for the world. So there's a problem with scaling. And then there's also a problem with privacy. And there's also a problem with decentralization. How decentralized are you going to be? And this is where the blockchain trilemma is.
Now, I always viewed, these 1.0 to 2.0 to 3.0s. I think of the internet. Internet was 1.0. Applications, apps on your phone was 2.0, in my view. Social media was 3.0. Blockchain is 4.0. So let's address a question that's on everybody's mind. And of course, the technology is completely separate, in my view, from price action. But we have seen what some would call an epic consolidation phase, if not a crash, which we've seen before, by the way, if we're looking at Bitcoin, if we're looking at the crypto market in general. Now, keep in mind, we haven't even hit $1 trillion of market cap yet. FANG stocks were off $1 trillion. That's what they lost over the last couple of weeks. What is your view with the market action when it comes to pricing? Do you view this as healthy? I spoke with Tone Vase earlier. He said that Ethereum is going to go to zero. All other coins are trash outside of Bitcoin. What's your view where we are in the market today? How do you see it?
Right. That's a really good question because on my channel, I always tell people Bitcoin has died like 9,000 times or like 368 according to 99bitcoins.com. And that's because people don't know how to price this. Right? How do you price this new digital asset? It's a decentralized currency. Do you use something like a fiat model? Do you use, like, what is this? And I got into cryptocurrencies in 2012. I started mining. And that's where the name box mining comes from. And for me, at that time, I thought $10. This is too much. It's too much. Oh, what is the value of this, right? And when I saw it going from 10 to 15, I was like, I gotta sell. It's a bubble, guys. It's a bubble. And I believe mainstream media in talking about this. But anyways, at that time, we were still dealing with the issue of scaling, and people were like, this can never scale, this doesn't work. And this few years was exciting because we actually have solutions to these problems, right? So moving on to this idea that, okay, we don't know how to speculate. We're speculating in all this, but at the same time, we need to make it work before people can actually use it.
So let's dig into that a little bit. Tell us about the scaling issue with Bitcoin specifically, just to kind of pick on that. I mean, it takes roughly 10 minutes for a block to be authenticated. So how are some of these other technologies solving that problem? And Bitcoin is open source, right? It's just a matter of time before they solve, I think, the scaling problem. What is your opinion?
Right, that's a really good question. So right now, 10 minutes, and also the block size is 1 megabyte. So it can only pack a certain number of transactions inside. So it calculates to around 5 to 6 transactions per second, depending on how you calculate, etc. But that's not a lot, right? So the reason for this is because we need to synchronize the entire network around the world. So you're looking at everyone who is keeping track of all the transactions in the world. And the power of Bitcoin here is that everyone, the president of the United States, or if you're a refugee, or you're like, just a guy on the street, you have the same amount of power in the network. And that takes a long time to have decentralization. Right? So with 1.0, we have to pack everything in blocks. With Bitcoin, you have to pack everything in blocks, but it's also safe. It's like your Swiss vault, right? You have a track record of making this safe, and then also you have a ridiculous number of miners protecting it. People, bring up the economic, ecological argument of, this expensive in terms of electricity, but at the same time, that's also forming the walls to protect your assets, right? This is the brick wall, the giant wall protecting you from hackers.
Yeah, so great points. Let's talk, okay, Bitcoin 1.0, we're here to talk about 4.0 allegedly. Let's talk about politics a little bit. You did a great video about the Bitcoin Cash, what I would call kind of a fiasco, in my view. And there's a lot of things going on there. So how could we be at 4.0 in an environment where there's this kind of politicking and infighting when we should all be really, in my view, on the same team? I mean, I saw this on your Twitter. I mean, we are fighting the 1%, right? Yes. Blockchain technology is a radical invention that is breaking the rules. It is anti-establishment on every single level, at least as I see it. I mean, that's what the white paper, it spoke to me reading Satoshi's vision. So what do you think about the recent events and drama in Bitcoin Cash and some of these other projects?
Right, and it all stems from the lack of understanding of what we're dealing with. right? Bitcoin Cash, is it an upgrade? This is such a controversial term because they had a larger block size. Does that mean it's 2.0 now because it's a larger block size? But at the same time, what are people wanting smaller block sizes? Because, well, you want to keep your blockchains trim because you want everyone to have access to it. So it's all these compromises on the way and how you choose to compromise. So this is where it leads to like these kind of classifications, 1.0, 2.0. It's highly misleading because it's not telling you what the compromises are made along the way. So 2.0 is meant to be Ethereum. So we got smart contracts, transactions happening. 3.0, we got EOS, IOTA, we got these DAGs coming through where it's not fully blockchain. It's on a direct acyclic graph, which is kind of in a nonlinear order of organizing transactions. And 4.0, people were talking about how we can have Byzantine agreement, where you can have transactions processed at millions of transactions per second, and with pretty much 7-second confirmations, which is amazing, right? Because Bitcoin is like, what, 10 minutes before you get a chance for confirmation, and then you still have to make sure that it's fully confirmed after like 4 or 5 confirmations.
Yeah, so we have these new technologies emerging. We'll dig in a little bit further, and I know you know a lot about this space, which I'm glad why they brought us on together.
Yeah.
But we're already talking about new technologies. Do we not have problems currently with some of the main technologies, like Bitcoin, for example? I always like to think outside the box because I still think there is a lot of almost overconfidence, even now with Bitcoin off 80% from its recent all-time peaks. So just to think outside of the box a little bit, to think critically, as Tone Vays says, he thinks Ethereum is going to go to zero. Is it possible, even though I don't believe this is going to happen, it would hurt my investments as well, can Bitcoin go to zero? Can the establishment fight back and pretty much bankrupt what we're currently looking at? There's a lot of talk of US dollar stable coins. I've been meeting with a few hedge fund managers recently. They're talking about these joint ventures with Circle and Goldman Sachs. The head of the IMF, her name's escaping me, Christine Lagarde, is talking about introducing digital one world currency. Is it possible they just bring it down to zero and give us something else?
Absolutely not. Is it working? All right, there we go. So absolutely not in this case. So a lot of people get confused thinking that Bitcoin is just a way of transferring currency. And if you have USDT or USDC and it's pegged to the US dollar, it's more stable, it should be better. And if it's faster transactions better, then Bitcoin could go to zero, right? But actually, no, because Bitcoin offers something that nothing else has, which is it's beyond the government, beyond all governments. It's international. I mean, think about that for once, right? For once in China, in USA, in South Korea, in Japan, we all have the same one currency, and none of these governments, none of the premier of China can't call, Bitcoin, the Bank of Bitcoin, and say, hey, we gotta close some accounts here. We gotta terminate some of these people. We gotta do something. We gotta issue fractional reserve now because we're out of money. None of these guys can call up Bitcoin and say, oh, well, let's change the rules. The rules are set by the community, by everyone around the world, and that is a power that no one can take away. So a lot of people still don't realize this. A lot of people still think, oh yeah, we're safe in the traditional fiat world. It's not. Fiat is a lie. In many ways, there's so many different government controls, different regulations, and different restrictions there that when you really go down that rabbit hole, you become very surprised, very scared what the Federal Reserve is actually like.
Yeah, and that's what's scary. I mean, just even seeing what's going on in the US right now, it's why I carry these $2 bills on me. They're business cards because fiat is fake. It's absolutely worthless in my view. And I hear people all the time, they don't understand Bitcoin. They also say, well, nobody's using it. I know you're using it, I'm using it. We have months where 50+% of our revenue is coming in the form of crypto every single day. So even that use case is revolutionary. And also, I think you hit the nail on the head. We need to understand why we are here, especially in a bear market. Why we are here, why we are fighting for this breakthrough technology. Now's the time, I think, to build these projects, and I think it's healthy, too. We're seeing weak hands leave the market. We're seeing weak hands sell. We are seeing weak projects leave the scene. I think that's bullish, actually. It should be the time you're...
It is really good, especially because right now, the people who are developing, they're showing up, and they're saying, you know what, we are putting this feature, this feature, this feature. And I mean, okay, I'm deep down, I'm a very big nerd, all right? I love technology, and I know that there must be things to be fixed in this space. But one of the take-homes is that there just isn't, we shouldn't look at this as a 1.0, 2.0 progression, because even Bitcoin is having the Lightning Network on it. It's also doing off-chain scaling. All of these technologies are trying to improve Bitcoin too, and this is all showing up at this time. So now we're not just interested in ICOs, we're also interested in what's being developed on top of these platforms too. And this is when value can be brought, when we can actually solve the scalability problem and let everyone use it. Right now, only a select group of people can use Bitcoin. Right? That's because the transaction speed, transaction confirmations, you don't have that many, and it's slow too. But eventually what I see is that we see people building together, building up a system. There's also going to be a lot of competition. I think that's good. As with all new kind of ideas, there's not one single kind of implementation that will work. I think this is very important to remember as well. It's because we're in the exploratory stage right now, we can all have a very critical eye of everyone presenting an idea to us. And you can ask them, what are the strengths and weaknesses? And if they only tell you the strengths, then you're going to have some problems because they're just hiding how weak they are.
Yeah, so scalability is an issue. There's new technologies being developed. We'll touch on a few of them. Also, there's been some really interesting announcements recently. I saw you tweet this. NASDAQ futures just announced. Of course, everybody was super bullish on that when the CBOE, CME brought that into the market. That's why we got the FOMO all the way up to 18,000. Now people are looking at this, and it's like the market's not even reacting. Let's talk a little bit about some of the new technology, blockchains. DAGs is a directed graph data structure that I'm reading this from their website, uses a topological ordering. The sequence can only go from earlier to later. So correct me if I'm wrong, I view Bitcoin as kind of a linear in fashion, right? And this other technology is non-linear, almost like quant computing or something like that, where it can solve simultaneous equations across the board, costlessly. Microtransactions are a big part of this.
Right, exactly. So we have a huge new brainwave of new ideas coming through. So if you think about Bitcoin, it's just it's very simple. It's every 10 minutes, transactions get confirmed and they get added to the blockchain. So just block by block by block, it's in linear fashion. But new people came out with ideas that were like, okay, can we do this non-linearly, right? Because the field of computing came up with all these fancy ideas of how to do, database sharding, how to do the DAGs that we were talking about. These ideas got implemented in a different way. So IOTA came out to say, you know what, let's do a DAG. We can process millions of transactions per second. We have not per second, but you have more transactions. We also have Nano coming out, Ray blocks. So these were all ideas of different implementations. Well, one of the things is that it's very interesting to see how different strengths and weaknesses there are in each of these systems. Not all of these systems are kind of as secure as Bitcoin. So now we have this war where we have people who, I feel like the communication got lost somehow. So I'm not sure if you noticed this, but I feel like there are different groups of people who would discard ideas. Right? So we have Maximum's culture, which says, okay, Bitcoin's culture, this linear fashion, is the only right culture because that's the kind of cleanest and easiest way.
It's very dogmatic, almost, in a way, almost like a religion. Like it's only Bitcoin or the highway versus, let these technologies actually compete. See which one is better. Maybe there's different use cases for different technologies.
Correct. Exactly. So if you talk to Tone a lot, he's like, everything's a scam but Bitcoin.
It's going to zero.
Everything's going to zero. Ethereum's a scam. EOS is a scam. It's going to zero. But you're like, how can you be so close-minded, right? There are so many different implementations, and there's, especially because I've been working in the technology field for such a long time, I know that from the outset, you don't know which one is going to succeed in the end. You don't know if there's any hidden weaknesses. So definitely caveats to 3.0, we got the DAGs coming through, but there's also weaknesses when verifying when the transactions happen, and we need to discuss that in the open, discuss that with you guys, and you guys got a question.
Yeah. And speaking of that, just because we have 1 minute left, we promised to be on point and on time. Let's get one question out to the audience, and then just food for thought. What are we not seeing? Right, the herd is always wrong. right? The consensus is always wrong. So just food for your own mind. What are we not seeing about the market? What are we not seeing about these projects? Where are the opportunities going to lie? And then we can throw out a question to the audience real quick. Let's go ahead and do that. Just, you can do it? Okay.
So just face the box, face the top of the box, and you can talk. And you can pass it to the next person who asked the question as well.
Any questions?
Okay. It's a bit of a, okay.
Do it. Do we have a mic or, okay.
Woo! Almost. We almost got it.
Hello? Okay, good. Yeah, just one simple question that, so we are talking about blockchain 4.0, but I feel that we are still too early to talk about 4.0. You know, web has been, from web 1.0 to 2.0, it took 10 years. But now we are talking about blockchain just in the past few years, and we are already talking about 4.0. So what is your view about, maybe is it because just we accept that the industry is fast changing, or are we just creating more hype out of talking about like 4.0 or 5.0 soon?
So I totally agree with you. So I'm actually on the point where I think we actually haven't finished 0.1 yet. You know, we haven't even finished blockchain 1.0, it's like I feel like there's still a lot to develop and fix the problems there. So I definitely agree with you on there. And the 4.0 term really came as a jargon early on this year to help promote new projects. It kind of implies that 4 is better than 3, 3 is better than 2, 2 is better than 0. When do we stop, right? Why can't we have blockchain 5.0, 6.0, 7.0? You know, all of these jargons, they don't really make much sense. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of people, they try to solicit projects for it. So what I'm trying to say here is that we're still trying to build every layer. So on Bitcoin, more is being done. Lightning Network, for example, Ethereum, we got Plasma, we got Raiden, we got ways to scale, improve the privacy aspect of it, and also improve the decentralization aspect of this. So every layer is being developed right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think it is hyped. It is overhyped a little bit. That's actually a good thing in my view. I mean, even if you hate Bitcoin, for example, most people on the street know what it is. Think about that from a marketing standpoint. Even if you're like, Bitcoin's a scam. Yeah, but you know about Bitcoin. That's a huge, huge deal. It means the market is saturated. And also looking at the ICO perspective as well, yeah, a lot of these are going to fail. 99% of them might fail. But that's good. That's what we need in a healthy marketplace for people to take risks, be bold, I think, and that's what Bitcoin is to me.
Right. And I think it's important, like, you know, you don't have to take risk with your money, right? Developers aren't that expensive. We got like teams of, 5, 10 coming out of an idea. So I feel like this place is ready for exploration. Just that, how much we, lose in the process. Like we shouldn't promote scams, but we should definitely explore.
Absolutely, and education, and the technology, even if Bitcoin did go to almost zero, we still have the technology at the end of the day. It's going to change the world, in my opinion. Maybe one more question here as we're running out of time, and go ahead, sir.
Hi. So I have 2 questions. First of all, the power and the strength of the blockchain platform or the Bitcoin comes from the developer community, right? Is the developer community and the people who are making decisions around putting rules in the source code, right? Are they influenceable? I mean, they can be tempted to make changes to the code in a manner that governments or the serious monopolies can actually force them to do. Is that a risk? Is that a possibility?
Oh, this is a really good question because it's also a very controversial question in the space. Because with Bitcoin, you can have multiple implementations of it. So back in the day, we will have like 4 or 5 different implementations. You can have developers developing your own Bitcoin client. As long as it obeys the rules of the protocol, then you're good to go. But we do face a problem right now where Bitcoin Core is right now the biggest client, most popular client for Bitcoin. And now with Bitcoin Core, you can say, oh, everyone can contribute code. It's open source. You can look at the code, fork the code, develop it yourself. That's how decentralization works. You want to have decentralized developers too. But the only issue right now is that there are people with merged rights into these new versions. Who accepts these new commitments? Who accepts this new code? This becomes a very, very controversial topic. So right now, what I do say is that the developers who have been on board from Bitcoin since the start, I think their motivations, objectives, they're very true to themselves. But at the same time, I definitely want more clients out there. I don't want to have just one Bitcoin Core client becoming popular because that's centralized. Then yes, then absolutely over a long period of time, then we're going to just have influence from government, from different corporations even, to try to control Bitcoin.
Yeah, and in closing, we're out of time. I agree with that. And governments aren't going to sit on the sidelines. We're going to see regulation. I think that's healthy. That's good. And we'll see it. Once we hit $1 trillion of market cap in the not-too-distant future and beyond, many think we can hit $40 trillion easily in the not-too-distant future. I think we're going to see global governments kind of try to use it, merge with it, et cetera. And thank you guys for having us. Thank you, Michael. That was a pleasure. And have us again, please. And thank you to BlockShow Asia. You guys are amazing.
Big hand to Christopher and Michael.
Thank you guys.
Thank you
Let's have
so
some
much.
lunch.